our former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, welcome back to the program. Here's my question. Is this Iran's response to President Biden's trip to the Mideast today?
Stuart, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on this morning. Yeah, it probably in part the response, but more than that, it is a result. It's a result of failed policies, right? We've let the foot off the throat of the Iranian regime. We've given them money and wealth. The Iranian economy will grow more this year than the American economy, and now they have the money to train alongside their Russian buddies. We ought to sanction the heck out of the Iranians, just as we did for 4 years. We put real pressure on them, and now they're going to help the Russians kill Ukrainian kids. This policy is so messed up on so many levels. We now got a president headed to the Middle East to beg the Saudis for energy that we could produce right here at home. Yeah. And that is connected to the fact that the Russians and the Iranians now are free to move about the cabin. Both economies are doing just fine in spite of this administration's efforts to push back against what we know is Vladimir Putin's aggressive activity in Ukraine. They are all deeply connected. We didn't mention China. It's connected too. These drones that the Iranians are likely to send them, if National Security Advisor Sullivan is right, will prove tremendously helpful to the Russians and tremendously lethal to the Ukrainians.
The other part of the trip, my question is the president trying to create a new bloc in the Middle East? Saudi Arabia, Gulf states, US, Israel against Iran. Is that something we should be working towards?
We had it going. Yes, the answer is yes, he should be working towards that. But when you campaign on the fact that someone's socially irredeemable or you're going to make them a pariah state, and then you deny them the weapons that we'd agreed to help them so they could defend their own sovereignty, those are not the acts of someone who's trying to build out relationships with the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Kuwaitis, the Omanis, the long list of Gulf Arab states. And the Israelis, too. When you befriend the Iranians, the Israelis know what that means for them and what they may have to ultimately do. So if it's what he's trying to do, Stuart, he has taken all of the actions that would make it incredibly difficult for him to build on the Abraham Accords and what we had built. We had isolated Iran in a way that they had never been isolated before. I hope they're trying to rebuild it, but they have messed it up for their first 18 months.
Will the president get any extra oil out of Saudi Arabia?
I don't know. I don't know if he will. I don't even know what extra means, Stuart. Will he get OPEC to agree to a little raising their cap a little bit? I suppose it's possible. The simplest way to get more energy for the world is to go allow permitting in federal lands in the United States and drilling right here in the United States and building out the infrastructure, pipelines, natural gas pipelines that America's going to need and that the world is going to need.
Is there any foreign policy point that the president has won? Is there any foreign policy success thus far in the Biden presidency? You're laughing.
Pretty limited, Stuart. They're pretty limited, Stuart. They messed up Afghanistan. They got 13 Americans killed and left a bunch behind. They've talked right about China. We'll see if they execute and deliver on the greatest threat, the greatest external threat, which is the Chinese Communist Party. I saw Director Wray, the FBI director, the other day. He had it right about the risk to the United States from China. I hope they execute and deliver on that. If they do, good on them.
And you will leave it till after November to decide on a presidential run. I believe that's the case, sir?
Yes, Stuart, that's absolutely right.
I knew what you'd say. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure, and thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Have a good weekend.
Yes, sir.